Excuse the lack of video, I'm playing a song in the background, as you could probably see. Yeah, I'm stressed out and I've not been doing well mentally, so excuse me. Um, and there's definitely things that aren't helping that at all. And this is mainly like the prevalence of bigotry in social media, like literal. Actually, I haven't noticed out, but shitting on the internet. Shitting on the internet. I don't know what it means exactly, but I think the phrase. Well, nothing's going up. Is shittifying? Shitting on the internet? I don't know. There was some term I heard which pretty accurately described what's going on now. And yeah, like, it's fucking dangerous as hell. Like, the internet is going in ways that we couldn't have foreseen, like, even back in 2015, when it started to pick up traction. And I think this is probably due to people just getting their hands on the internet and thinking they understand the ins and outs of it. And that's why you get people like, actually saying like insults in comment sections, even though that's against like most total service anyway. Discrimination is for that matter. Um, and it's just like it's gross. And I generally go by philosophy now, where I didn't used to really, as someone who was not very serious about the internet and did sort of harass people to an extent, not massively. I didn't make it my life's work like some assholes do. But yeah, I used to be that sort of person, but then I realised I'm an adult now, and if I can't speak like this in real life, then why am I speaking at all? That's generally my philosophy, and I also have to essentially give myself plot armor in that sense, um, in the way that the internet seems to stab you with a sword like every 5 seconds. So you have to be prepared for it essentially, maybe like a plot shield, I don't know. It's probably a bad name for it. But yeah, like I generally prescribe to the philosophy of being prepared for essentially the worst. I know if I ever end up with proper stalkers or cyber police, I have strategies around that. I'm a very unpredictable person, so you wouldn't want to be doing that, just for the record. But yeah, and there's a lot of tricks to that as well. I've developed it over time. It's definitely a safety method, a self-defense method, actually, I should say, not safety. Um, so I'm prepared for that, essentially. Um, also, like being too honest as well can be a detriment, but I'm generally an honest person, so I don't let that get in the way. Um, yeah, like, I want to talk about the shitting of the internet, essentially, and how bad it is for, in general, like the world. Because we're going through a phase right now where we're still trying to understand it, get to grips with it. Admittedly, the internet came about in like the 90s or something, and yeah, like people were still trying to figure it out back then, but still didn't understand it properly. Um, but even then, those who do understand it seem to use it well, and there's also like bad actors. It just seems like nowadays we see more bad actors than ever, and this is typically in places where not to be ageist, but tends to have like older people. You know, you rarely see like someone who's like 16 plus just casually dropping the F bomb or the bad F bomb, but the N word. Like, it used to be a common thing, like, I think 10 years ago. We just drop those words just whenever. There should nobody bat an eye. And like the only thing that's changed and what people need to understand is we're better than that. Yeah, we're past this, and because of the association, where the fuck is this cave? What used to be here? There it is. Yeah, like with past time, we're definitely smarter than we used to be, thanks to the passing of the internet and information on it. But people seem to use it to bad effect, and this is where we come to today, where not only is short form content dominating the world, the excessive amount of people being online, probably due to the pandemic, honestly, probably that's what's happened. It's led to complete utter like bullshit like, everywhere. You've got terrible news articles that are scaremongering or rage baiting. You've got comment sections that are completely full of bigotry and weird shit. Like you even see it with conspiracy theories, where someone will objectively prove something is false, and you'll get someone who reacts to it saying, "No, you're wrong because X thing isn't actually a reason." Like Illuminati, for example, that's completely batshit insane, and it's definitely a dangerous direction for the world. Um, and I'm definitely not happy about it. As someone who's been on the internet since like 2006, I'd say, possibly earlier, um, it's not going in a good direction. It used to be a lot more tame. Even when we used to call each other like N-words, it was still tame. It wasn't this bad. So, the other thing, I guess, is like, how do you respond to bigotry in a sense? And I think there's a reason behind why people are even being bigoted to begin with. And that's because they're behind the face of the internet. As I said, like, if you're not prescribing to being the person on the internet you're being in real life, then you're not being true to yourself, you're not being true to anyone. And as a result, you don't have an authority to even tell people what to do, or let alone insult them. And honestly, it's a cowardly thing to do, to go onto the internet and pick on people. That's ridiculous. I generally preach peace myself, not anywhere. And there are situations where you have to fight back, and in rare cases you have to get violent. But that's part of life, really. It's part of achieving peace. I've learned that the hard way over the years of being on the internet and also learning, just constantly learning new topics. And one of the biggest things you can do right now in your life is probably admitting that you're wrong on topics when you are objectively wrong. Because I never used to do that, and honestly, it made me a bit mad, it made me miserable sometimes. And then when I realised that there is like such a thing as being true to yourself and others, it just alleviates so many of the problems that come with lying to yourself, saying that it's you believe in the right thing even though it's the wrong thing. Just admitting it and then making things right just helps a lot. Like, undeniably, it has for me personally, and might not for other people. But that's for you to find out. Um, yeah, like that's like the most important thing. Um, what else was I going to say on this? So yeah, like the other strategy I'll use for like addressing bigotry is try to dismantle the position, because a lot of people are doing this again because of the face of the internet, but also because they're for some reason trying to project or something or blame it on someone else. Just to use a recent example, like I sometimes browse a page called Plant-Based News. They're generally a decent group. They've had issues in the past. I think most vegans tend to reject them anyway. Not all of them, but some definitely do. Like they're not as bad as Peter. I'll say that. They're more informative for that and generally better with their content. But like looking at the comment sections on their social medias is like it's a fucking war zone, and it's really one-sided towards anti-vegans, or I'll consistently say this, but there's probably AI involved in it somewhere. So it completely saturates the entire section, and not only that, it just seems to attract the wrong attention. Because they'll make a post like there was one I saw recently. They were posting about if trees had funerals, which is like a interesting concept that I don't think many of us have even thought about. But dismantling the position of the comments that are essentially laughing at this or against this, you're doing that because you chose not to try and understand. So you're using stupidity as your excuse, and you're using that to pick on people. There's nothing more cowardly than that. And if you were to go face to face with someone who actually explains to you that the reason that people might even hold funerals of trees is because they respect nature and love it, then yeah, like, how do you even refute that point? Of that you can. And people might think it's stupid to sort of hold funerals for trees, but then, you know, the only thing I can argue against that myself is the logical inconsistency. Because if you have funerals for trees, why not for plants? Why not for anything else? Yeah, like, in general, like, people not understanding it or doing nothing. And to me, it just seems like a circle jerk, or even like snork. I'd call it snork because that's a recent term. It's just a comment section filled with that, and that's dangerous. There's all of these to a point I've been thinking about recently, especially in like terms of like bigotry and discrimination towards people. I see it in like comment sections in other places. Like I think I can't remember. If I swear I saw like a video about immigration stuff in the US. What's happening? Maybe it was UK. It's probably UK actually. But they were spouting the same bigotry that a lot of other people do, and like the irrefutable point that a lot of people seem to fucking miss or ignore about immigrants essentially is they come here because there's a problem where they lived. They come here for possibly an opportunity, but just a way to get out of that shitty place. And it's going to be happening with like Americans soon because holy shit, they're passing bills that will essentially put people on the streets, like innocent people, children included. Like if they're not rounded up for like some weird fucking cult thing, which they probably are doing, eventually, as you know, man, the cunt who will not be named essentially is that sort of person by the sounds of it. Probably would round up the kids just for himself, but yeah, that's fucking nuts. And again, this seems to come from a place of bigotry and projection, probably. But I'm gonna go out and say that this is likely because people are projecting, they're trying to get away with something that they're doing wrong, and that's why they do this. They know they're part of the guilty party here. And so they tend to project it on other people, and I will admit one thing I can still man about them is if you're on the side of being discriminated against or condemned for a crime you commit or don't commit, depends really, then you're not going to feel up to really talking about it or even getting help for that matter. There's like a shitty situation paired with another shitty situation, so obviously you're gonna go one of two ways of it, like fight or flight. You're either gonna be really anxious or you're gonna be essentially a bully. There's no other way about it. And it's sort of dangerous in a sense that the fact that we have that attitude as a society, but I tend to promote understanding anyway. For anyone, doesn't matter. Like, if you're a murderer or even a paedophile, I don't fucking care. I've done my research on both, and there are indications that these things are inherent to people. Like, that's enough on that, but the people who seem to take it too far are those that like bully others because they're trying to escape from that or even distract from it, from what they're currently doing. Like, they're these people that are making these comments. And like, the reason why in other cases like vegans accuse farmers of like abusing animals is because that's literally what they're doing. Like, it is literally exploitation. And that exploitation leads to fucking abuse. So it's always abuse because there's always that enabling factor for it. And I don't see many vegans find that out now, sadly. They seem to pinpoint, like, focus in on like abuse. Is it abuse? And they focus in on one point, and it's not the thing that's the source of it all. And whilst it is effective to bring that up to people, like even industry practices, like factory farms always have that. It goes ignored. A lot of people, not just vegans, like industry practices are a real thing. They exist because people found a thing to exploit. And they have to regulate that in a certain way to be efficient. That's why you end up with that sort of situation, where animals are actively abused. It's fucking crazy. So I think I've spoken about everything. I don't know. Trying to think. Doing a boss here. You know what, this projection? Oh yeah, that was the other thing. But I forgot to say that. People need to fucking get their act together and stop investigating these people who are saying this weird shit online, thinking they can get away with it. To be honest, they only get away with it because people are not doing enough to prevent it. Like, there's an obligation if you're someone who's got a kind heart anyway to help like people who are being affected by this, as well as essentially debunk people who are saying this shit. Like, again, like the comments section in that post I mentioned with plant-based news, there's a lot of images of like vegans. Here's how your animals die for your like tofu or something, and it's like a literal straw man. It's not even related, and even then, like, they ignore the fact that crop dufs make up like far greater numbers with animal agriculture, because animal agriculture relies on crops, the same things we eat. So because there's more animals on the planet than humans, and they're slaughtered each day, as well as raised for days at a time, that all adds up, and there ends up being more crop deaths. So even in that situation, the vegan position is the morally correct one. Even if you go by logic, what the hell's happened here? Oh yeah, just go there. But it's fucking nuts how people are allowed to get away with this and spread misinformation, and that's what's leading me to say now that they need to be investigated if it's possible. Definitely isn't always possible, but I think it's important because it's such a dangerous viewpoint and position that you literally can't let people get away with spreading this misinformation. And people are like rewriting science because of their bigotry or conspiracy theories. It's absolute fucking danger to the world. And people probably don't realise the impact of that, but it is actually a massive issue, and it shouldn't go ignored. And that's probably why most of us are miserable anyway at the moment. And yeah, I just get fed up of it, honestly. Just wish people would be more empathetic to others. Think about it through their eyes. I used to be someone who actually did sort of think about conspiracy theories and believe they're true. The antidote to that is actually asking the relevant people on the topic who actually understand it, rather than putting my own answers out what I think it is and putting that as fact. I think that's why a lot of people dangerously mess with like the truth and stuff. It's exactly because of that. Because you just can't debate this with someone. Because you haven't bothered talking to someone else. And this ended up being a truth for a lot of things that I've believed over the years. Even religion for that matter. You know, how do you explain everything if there wasn't a God? If the, wait, is it? No, I think it was actually it put forth the point that God made everything, and I didn't realise that even came with issues before until I actually looked into like atheist communities and stuff. Like generally looking for the answer. I literally googled it, I think, and what came out was atheists and their answer to that. It turns out that people who believe this are essentially not using critical thinking and using science for that matter. It's, they use a thing called creationism, and that's a form of bigotry itself because it's the belief that the planet is made by a single deity or something. And the truth isn't that. Like, it's fucking crazy. I can't concentrate and do two things at once. Yeah, like, you can't prove a god, so you can't actually prove creationism. And that's why it's always flawed. Like, it's just generally never good. Yeah, I think I've made my point there. Being kind and being more understanding makes you a better person overall. And also a lot of people again like tying into the scapegoating and stuff. They are like oh, what was I gonna say? One of them was starring so much. Yeah, like people using religion as a scapegoat are dangerous for religion. Because I generally don't have a problem with people who are religious. It's just when they enforce beliefs on other people, especially children for that matter, that it's pretty dangerous because there's a certain belief there and that causes mental health issues. And on occasion, I think. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of problems with that. It causes like religious disorder, I think, or religious disorder. Um, it's like PTSD, but not exactly. It's like fear of religion, its teachings and stuff, like heaven and hell. It's a real thing. It's officially recognised, I think, by medical experts. Yeah, and people use religion to justify anything. To justify racism, transphobia, homophobia, anything, even though it doesn't explicitly say that. So using religion to wrong effects and essentially using it to essentially lash out to people, and that's again really dangerous. And I think it's again another reason that these sort of people need to be investigated. It's just stupidly dangerous. Like, I can't imagine how many people have been affected by this sort of thing, like in real life or online, who never have their stories heard. Just think about that for a second. And that would be terrifying, I think. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. Thanks for listening. If you have any insight or even bottles, I'm open to it. The only thing I won't tolerate is insults because they don't do anything. I'm not patient enough to stand around for that. So get lost if you think of doing that. Go somewhere else. Go to the gym. I'll take it on someone else or something else. Not someone else, something else. I mean, yeah.